time trying to unite the Democratic caucus. 2018 midterms ushered in a Democratic majority that includes many members who are more progressive, and that has led to fissures over legislative priorities, how the party should approach President Trump, and the issue of ideological purity. If all this sounds familiar, it's a show John Boehner says he has seen before. Back in March, he predicted Democrats would face their own Tea Party moment and reckoning. It's their turn in the barrel, he said. What Democrats are going through in 2016 and 18 with the progressive movement, Republicans went through in 2010 and 2012 with the Tea Party moment. Emily Tisch Sussman, let me start with you. You sat down with the Speaker recently, talked about this in part. How she sees her role in all of this. There was this infamous quotation that she gave to Maureen Dowd in a column that Maureen Dowd wrote a few weeks back, in which she talked about how all these people have their public whatever in their Twitter world, but they didn't have any following. There are 4 people, and that's how many votes they got. She's speaking of these 4 female congresswomen who were attacked by the president this week. What's her sense of her role now, the second time around as Speaker?
It's to pass legislation. It's twofold. It's to pass legislation so that when and if Democrats do take over both houses of Congress or have a Senate they can work with, which would be without McConnell, and a new presidency, there's actually a baseline for legislation to move. And in that, she's been very successful. They started by passing sweeping democracy reforms. They passed sweeping. They passed just this week. They passed a large minimum wage raise bill. So that is number one. And number 2 is protecting the House majority. So protecting the hundred or so members who won in districts that they didn't necessarily think they would win in before. And that is her focus. She doesn't take the bait. She stays focused. I actually asked her specifically about this point. You know, how do you not become the Tea Party? Like, how do you hold the caucus together? Mm-hmm. And she was very quick to say, it is not my job to hold everyone together. Our values hold us together. So, you know, she is trying to give, from my perspective, I think she is trying to give space and respect for everyone along the ideological spectrum. But her job is clear. It's pass legislation. It's protect vulnerable members.
You mentioned those 2 things. I read Michelle Goldberg's column today, though, David, and she writes, she came to power with a promise to go after Trump. And therein lies the difficulty, right? Yeah. There are all of these people who ushered in this Democratic majority who think that that should be priority 1 for the Speaker.
But at the same time,
yes,
of the 40 or so Democrats who won in 2018, I think 34, 31, I don't have the exact number, are in districts that Trump carried. So the majority, the Democratic majority, is there in part because people from Trump districts won. And this gets into the whole impeachment argument. A lot of them don't want to vote for impeachment and say to their constituents, the person you selected for president, I am diselecting on my own. And that, you know, people in the Democratic Party, people who support the squad, and I'm, you know, I'm on the progressive side myself, are they're saying impeachment's a moral imperative, it's a legal imperative, the evidence is there, but it's still possible that the Democrats don't have the votes to pass it. And that puts her in a very difficult position because she is, you know, not just juggling, you know, I think the Tea Party analogy is overstated. She's not just juggling a division, but she's also juggling a big issue that she doesn't want to talk about for good reason. I think she's in a difficult position. I just wish that they would spend more time not on impeachment, but on investigations and oversight and hearings showing the corruptions of the Trump administration.
Certainly having some big ones this week as well, of course, with Bob Mueller on Capitol Hill. But Don, I want to get your reaction to the degree to which the House Speaker has embraced these 4 congresswomen over the course of the week. Yes, she's nodded to them. They've been made mention of at press conferences, but there hasn't been a great show of unity, the likes of which there could have been.
There hasn't been, but they have gotten their just due, the squad. And I'm a big fan of the squad, although everybody has some room for criticism. Listen, the squad is on, they're not on the basket weaving committee. They're on financial services. They're on judiciary. They're getting prime time in these globally televised hearings that freshman members of Congress simply don't get, be they extremely progressive or extremely popular or not. So the squad has gotten their due. They're getting press conferences and such whenever they want to say what they want to say. And I think that Nancy Pelosi has done her job in terms of showing them their due respect. I don't think Nancy Pelosi's job is to take a tremendous amount of time dealing with 4 individual members of Congress. Her job, and boss man Jim Clyburn reminds us all the time, 218. And to the extent that they are hindering protecting 218, and I feel like a bit duplicitous because I always say you're not sending you up there just to get reelected, but their job is to some degree to protect the majority. And,
I mean, we've seen the difference between Democrats controlling the House and not controlling the House. And that's the thing,
like, if they think that Pelosi and Hoyer do a bad job of sharing power, you don't want to try how Kevin McCarthy handles it, right?
Yeah. Emily, you got these 2 honorary squad members here at the table. you like what they stand for in part. And I was reading this interview that Isaac Schotner at the New Yorker did with Barney Frank, the former congressman, and they were talking about the differences between those four women and maybe the majority of the Democratic caucus in the House. And what Congressman Frank said is the issue is not substance. That's not the issue of difference there. It's not substance. It's a strategic and a tactical difference. And what he's saying is they sort of ascribe a sense that the majority wants what they want. How much of a disconnect is there in terms of how all of this is played out? Their sense, what you're saying about these new members of the House, that they came in, these four women and others, and thought that they were speaking for the party as a whole, the caucus as a whole.
I think it is really a difference of tactic. Look, they hold a very big microphone. When they hold a press conference, press show up. They carry it live. They have more followers on Twitter than I think the entire caucus combined, or something crazy like that.
Obviously.
But they, so that's very important.
AOC herself might have more followers than the rest of the Democrats combined.
And they resonate with young people. They do. I mean, I actually saw someone describe. I thought it was not an insult, but correct to say, look, she may be like the first kind of reality star member of Congress, and that she lets people in. They connect with that. Is that where we're going as a whole? I don't really know, but I think this is really a balance between the institution of the House and the power, and to your point, that Pelosi has elevated them to that level, and how much do you balance with the microphone that they have? Does that get overcounted? That's
why Pelosi was absolutely wrong when she gave that quote to Maureen Dowd and said, you know, I don't care what they have about Twitter, they're just 4 votes. Things have changed with social media, and the fact that they have this platform much bigger than any backbenchers could have had in the past with Twitter, social media, and Facebook and Instagram means that she needs to think about their role in the party a little bit differently. I also think they need to think about their role in the party
as well,
too. So when AOC made those comments, basically accusing Nancy Pelosi of singling them out because they're women of color, that triggered this whole thing. And Donald Trump gave them an easy way out by going full racist. Yeah. But nevertheless, she needs to think about her own megaphone and how she can be an insider and outsider within the